you've referenced a couple times how like when you first started the blog, it wasn't like supposed to be this big.
Right.
When did you kind of start to see some substantial growth coming in?
Let me think about that. Well, I think the main thing I think I get, like, how I started to get people to read it, and Allie and I were actually talking about this in the car, but so when I first started it, I was kind of thinking, because when I first had kids, it was like I was young, obviously, and everybody, not that young, but everybody was making fun of the people that would all of a sudden like post all these pictures of their kids on Facebook, and then it's like, oh, I don't want to see these pictures of these people's kids anymore. And I was like, I felt the same, so I didn't want to be one of those people that was like posting all photos of my children, and that was all I cared about. So I think one of the things I thought when I started the blog was like, okay, this is cool because now I'll have a place where if you want to see photos of my kids, this is where you can see them. You have to sort of like sign up for it, but I'm not going to be doing that like on my personal profile.
Yeah.
And then I sort of quickly realized, like, you know, I spent all this time building the blog and, you know, writing the content, you know, for like, let's say it was the first week of content, and I was kind of like really proud of it. So I kind of thought, okay, nobody's going to read any of this unless I show my friends and family, you know, where I was kind of thinking I was going to do it sort of secretly and build it otherwise, but I don't know if that's really even a possibility. So that was the biggest thing, was that I was just like, okay, I'm going to put this out there for my friends because otherwise no one's going to see it.
Yeah.
And I think it really all started very organically with friends and family and them sharing it with people. And that's how it all grew from my like original friend base, I would say. Yeah. And I think it really started to grow mainly on Facebook. Like Instagram wasn't a thing then. Yeah. And I think back then, like there were very few people, I think, talking about parenting really honestly. I think most of the things that you would see were like, you know, people who were either talking about like homeschooling or like crafting or like this really like beautiful version of motherhood. And I wanted to do it more in like of a fun, cool way.
Yeah.
And so I think at the time it felt like something new, which is why it was shared a lot. And it was also like I did really like bite-sized content, which I feel like now is what people would follow like a meme account on Instagram, and they would be getting sort of what I was doing, but about my personal life on my blog. So that I think at the time it felt new. I always talk about this, that I feel like the content that did really well, because there was a lot of things that like I would post something and, you know, like just like a bunch of funny pictures of kids with captions, and you would get like 50,000 shares on Facebook, you know? I mean, it was like crazy, which you would never, at least for me, like I would never get that now, because I think that people are following all this same kind of content on Instagram, where that used to not be there.
Yeah. So what do you think of the current state of Facebook with its organic reach going down? Do you still go heavy on it with the content, or have you kind of slowed down a little bit?
I've definitely like slowed down on Facebook. I think right now it's very clear that like my main following is on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I think also what I've realized is that I was using Facebook less on a personal level, so I sort of started to be a little bit less like interested in it. But I still do have a very big following there, and when I post something that you know it's good and people like, you know, respond to, like it still does really, like it still is a big part. Yeah. A main part of my traffic, you know, but it used to be like, I mean, it used to like drive like 99% of my traffic. Yeah. And I think they've definitely made it harder to reach people. But I think also when the stuff I was posting there was like doing really well, I was also talking about you know, I think when you first become a mom, you're online a lot looking for information or people to relate to. But for me now, it's like the things that I'm dealing with, or the age that my kids are at. I don't think people with kids the same age are like searching for that kind of information like they were when they were little.
Yeah. And then so when you finally made your Instagram account, how did you grow it? Was it a lot of migrating followers from Facebook to Instagram, or was it a new group of people that you were reaching?
I think it was both. So I'll say like the first thing was when I started doing Instagram, I definitely pushed everybody from Facebook and my blog to be like, okay, I'm doing this Instagram account now, like follow me.
Yeah.
And I think back then it was like a lot of the people that started following me, like they were joining Instagram for the first time because I was saying I'm going to be posting stuff there. So, so I think it was like, you know, a lot of people were, you know, were just downloading the app, you know, and figuring out who to follow. Or I was saying like, you know, I tend to be like a little bit of like an early adopter of things. So I think that was part of it. And then I also think that pretty early on, I got like featured in a bunch of places. So I think like, I remember like maybe I had been using it for 2 months or something like that. I want to say I had like, you know, 100 followers or I mean, it may have been more than that. I'm not sure. But Huffington Post ran an article that was, I think it was like the top 23 women to follow on Instagram. So it wasn't even like moms, it was women. So it was like Lauren Conrad and like Lena Dunham and I forget who else was on that list, but it was like, I think like Man Repeller was on there. And me, I don't know how they found me or why that happened, but actually I do know. There was somebody that I had written some like parenting posts for Huffington Post at one point, and she was following me. So I think she recommended me, but I don't know how that ended up going.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like when that came out, what's funny now is that like I think like maybe it grew my account from like, you know, if let's say it was 300 people and it grew it to 1,000 people, but like at the time I was like, oh my god, 1,000 people are following me on Instagram, that's crazy. So but that was like, but that I feel like opened me up to like an audience that was like separate from the people who had been following me before. And I'll also say that like at the beginning, for a long time, like I was posting on Instagram because I really loved the photography aspect of it, and like really was genuinely like the platform. I was not using it to promote my blog.
Okay, interesting.
So it was sort of like a little bit separate, and then it took me like, so I think that's part of the success there was that like I wasn't with every picture being like, and come read my story over at Mommy Shorts. I wasn't sending them anywhere else. I was just like using Instagram sort of like as a like its own platform. And then I think at some point, like, I mean, it might have even been like a year in or something, where I was like, okay, now I have like a pretty decent following on Instagram. Maybe they would like to know that I'm also posting like, you know, full stories on my blog. So then I started, you know, sort of integrating it a little bit more.
Yeah, and there's also no like easy way, especially back when Instagram first started, to go from Instagram to another platform. Like you can't like link in your
no, it was just the link in bio and that. Yeah. And that was it. And then I think that, and I think like in addition to that Huffington Post thing, I would say there's been several publications that have featured me as like one of the parents to follow on Instagram. Like Parents Magazine had me at some point as like the #1 parent to follow on Instagram. Oh yeah. Instagram itself actually featured something that I did.
No way.
So that was really huge. There was also there was something that I made. There was a woman that was a follower of mine that was posting these really cool paper dresses that her daughter was making, and I'm like, this is awesome. Like I'm like, I'd love to feature you on my blog. And she was really into it because she was a big follower at the time, and I think I want to say she had like 800 people following her at that point. So I did this post of basically like showing all of the dresses that her daughter was making out of paper. She was like, I think her daughter was 5 at the time. And as soon as I finished writing the post, I was like, this is going to go viral. I just knew it. So I said at the bottom of it, she has whatever it was, let's say 800 something followers now. Let's see how many followers she has by the end of the day. And by the end of the day, I'm going to say she had about like 150,000. And then by the end of the week, I want to say it was like 350,000. Because it went crazy. Yeah. She ended up with a J. Crew line, that girl.
That's
incredible. And I was much smaller at the time. Like, let's say I had 20,000 followers at that point. But the first thing that she did was she posted something thanking me for writing the article that made this all happen. So I ended up getting like another 20,000. Like she went, astronomical, but I still grew my account significantly from just posting about, just sort of discovering this other thing that I thought was cool.
Yeah.
So that to me is a really big lesson in like generosity, you know, because it benefits everybody.